shoot, 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 shoot.
Hey guys, welcome. It's that time again. Your NFL weekly recaps. I'm Ren City, host of Sports and Shorts of sorts. And let's jump right to this. Let's jump into the craziness that we know as Week 14. How did it start off? Well, a highly anticipated AFC North battle between the 3-9 Cleveland Browns and the division-leading 9-3 Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers have a much better record, but we remember they fell to this same Browns team just a few weeks earlier. Pittsburgh got some great field position after the Browns couldn't do much with it, and that would lead to a Chris Boswell field goal. He's been money all season, putting the Steelers up 3-0 early. The Browns looked to answer and looked a little more calmer on their next drive. Jameis Winston finding Elijah Moore on a big play. Then when faced with pressure, Winston rolled out and just before crossing the line of scrimmage threw an absolute dart to Jerry Jeudy, scoring on a 35-yard touchdown. Browns led 7-3. Steelers' offense had nothing going for them, but they'd get a lifeline, a thick pick. Big man Keanu Benton intercepted Jameis Winston on a screen pass attempt, setting the Steelers up with their best field position of the day. And a few plays later, Steelers got into a first and goal situation. From there, Najee Harris punched it in, Steelers leading again 10-7. Steelers were still struggling to move the ball. They'd have to set up a long field goal, but you know Chris Boswell's money, a 54-yarder, putting the Steelers up 13-7. Browns looked to try to cut into that lead before halftime. Jameis Winston leading his team in the field goal range, where Dustin Hopkins lined up the 38-yarder, and he'd miss it wide. A bad miss for the Browns kicker, who struggled this year, and Pittsburgh took that 13-7 lead into halftime. The Browns, they'd take the ball to start the second half. Jerome Ford getting a huge kickoff return. They set up the Browns nicely. Winston would then find Michael Woods on a nice back shoulder throw for a touchdown, but he was called for offensive pass interference. Another incompletion. Browns would have to try a field goal attempt. This one from 43, and Dustin Hopkins again missing the field goal, ruining nice field position off that kickoff return, and still the Steelers led 13-7. They took advantage of this missed field goal, moving right down the field. And in Browns territory, Russell, last name Wilson, he looked for Van Jefferson, finding his receiver on a 10-yard touchdown toss, increasing the Steelers' lead to 20-7. Browns got it back, faced with 4th and 1 near midfield. They'd go for it, and Ford's run was not anywhere close. Turnover on downs, giving the ball back to Pittsburgh, where Wilson found Mike Williams on a nice catch along the sidelines. A few plays later, he looked for Pat Freiermuth on a 20-yard touchdown toss. Suddenly, this game was 27-7. But you know Jameis Winston, there's no quit on that team. He'd get the Browns going, he'd get them down the field, finding tight end David Njoku on a 15-yard touchdown pass, cutting that lead to 27-14 halfway through the fourth. The defense forced Steelers to punt again, but former Kansas City Chief and New York Giant Kadarius Toney, he'd fumble the punt, leading to the Steelers recovering. They'd run the clock out, and big win for Pittsburgh, splitting the season series with the Browns as they still lead the AFC North. And like I said, the Steelers moved to 10-3, still leading the division, widening that gap between them and the Baltimore Ravens. Head coach Mike Tomlin, the Steelers, they just get it done year after year. For the Browns, this is another tough loss and just a tough season. You know, they've had tons of tough losses. They dropped to 3-10. And although they have brought some entertainment to their fans lately, the team still has lots of work to do going in the next season. An NFC showdown featuring two teams that probably can't wait for this season to be over. The 4-8 New Orleans Saints went on the road to take on the 2-10 New York Giants. I had read there were tickets for this game going as low as $1. Like, you can't get lot for $1 nowadays, so that's saying a lot. The Giants, they were looking to start this game off with some physicality, facing a 4th down. They'd go for it. Not even coming close, turning the ball over on downs early. The Saints tried to take advantage of that, lining up for a 53-yard field goal, but Blake Grupe missed it wide, and we had a scoreless game. The Giants, again, failed to do much, leading to the Saints getting the ball back. They'd move the ball down the field effectively, and as they got deep in the Giants' territory, they'd hand it off to Keandre Miller. He'd show off some physical running, with his linemen turning the full rugby scrum as they punched in an 8-yard touchdown run, putting the Saints up 7-0. This Giants offense looked awful. They were trying to get in the game. Drew Lock starting the game 0 for 8. No completions. They were finally picking up some positive plays, getting into field goal range where Graham Gano would hit a 43-yarder, putting them on the board at least as they trailed 7-3. The Giants defense forced the punt with just over 6 minutes left in the second quarter, where Smith Marset returned it for a touchdown, but Typical Giants fashion, points taken off the board for a holding call. Saints got the ball back and tried to get some late second quarter points, trying a 60-yarder for Blake Groupie, but it was blocked. And this dollar ticket game was going into halftime 7-3, Saints leading the Jets. And as the third quarter went on, Saints were having their way with the Giants. They had moved. Did I call them the Jets? It's tough being a New York team right now. But anyway, the Saints were having their way with the Giants, methodically moving down the field. Derek Carr would find Foster Moreau on a big play to get in the Giants' territory. Then he'd look for his other tight end, finding Juwan Johnson on an 11-yard touchdown toss. And the Saints were up 14-3. Giants weren't giving up, though. Getting the ball in the field goal range, Graham Gano would hit a 48-yarder to make it 14-6, make it a one-possession game. Or did he? Nope. There was another penalty on the Giants. Anytime they score, they just take the points off. A 15-yard personal foul negated the field goal, and the Giants had the punt at still trailing 14-3. They got it back, and against their own, fighting themselves in this game too, they were trying to stay alive, picking up a big fourth down conversion, and they'd get deep in the red zone, giving the ball to rookie running back Tyrone Tracy, where he'd punch it in. It was reviewed, but you saw he broke the plane. Giants went for two, and they converted, making it a 3-point game. Drew Lock's pass, it got tipped up in the air, but they caught it. A little luck for Lock, and it was suddenly a 14-11 game. The Saints, they punted it away after Derek Carr tried to pick up a first down and dove for it. He came up short, and he looked hurt. It looked like a concussion, but he was holding his hand. But as you can tell, it was more than a concussion. He had an injury to his left and his non-throwing hand, and he'd get replaced by backup quarterback Jake Hayner. The Giants would go for it on 4th and 9, and Demario Davis picked off Drew Lock, and the Giants would use all their timeouts to force another punt, getting the ball back to Lock with another chance to tie the game. And they picked up a few first downs. Faced with 4th and 10, Drew Lock would scramble for a huge run, picking up a first down. He'd then find rookie Malik Neighbors, who took the ball all the way down to the Saints' 12. They'd spike it. After a few tries to get into the end zone, Graham Gano would come out to try and tie this thing up with a 35-yard field goal. But he'd have the kick blocked by Brian Breezy, showing off the athleticism on an outrageous field goal block. And after the block, the kick didn't have a chance. The block kick really summarized the Giants' season in a nutshell, showing adversity, but falling just short, losing 14-11. The Saints keep that very slim playoff chance alive, although it may be tough winning games going forward. I mentioned that injury to Derek Carr. He entered concussion protocol, and he left the stadium with his hand in a cast, fearing a fractured left hand could be the injury. So even when the Saints win, it comes at a price. On the other end, the Giants dropped to 2-11, losing their 8th in a row and losing in another painful fashion. Fans are at wit's end with this franchise. There was a plane flying over the stadium pregame, pleading with the owner of the team to make changes, a message showing, "Mr. Mara, enough. Please fix this dumpster fire." Speaking for numerous fans and requesting a total revamp of the team, Mara declined the comment, but rookie wide receiver Malik Neighbors said, "I ain't paid for the plane." The way the game ended made it seem like the money was well spent by whoever wanted to reach out to ownership in the most public way possible. I don't think things can get worse for the Giants, but I'm scared to say it just in case. We go to the AFC East, where we have a battle of two teams hungry for a win. One to try and boost the mood of depressed fans, and the other just trying to sneak into the playoffs with very slim chances. You had the 3-9 now New York Jets. I mentioned them earlier, but here's the Jets now. Flew south to take on the 5-7 Miami Dolphins. This AFC showdown is always special, regardless of the record. The Dolphins got a perfect opening drive, marching right down the field in the field goals into a goal situation and facing 3rd and goal. To a look for Tyreek Hill, but defensive PI in the end zone gave the Dolphins the ball and on the first down. A few plays later, Devon Achane would punch it in with the rushing touchdown. But as they went to kick the extra point, Jason Sanders missed, so the Dolphins only led 6-0. The Jets would move the ball down the field, getting help with some defensive penalties along the way. And as they got in the field goal range, they couldn't enter the end zone. Anders Carlson hit a 28-yard field goal to cut the lead in half at 6-3. Then the Dolphins answered by moving down the field, where they'd have to settle for a field goal. Jason Sanders knocked it through to increase the lead to 9-3. Around midfield, the Jets had the ball and were facing 4th and 4. They'd go for it. Rodgers, he hung in the pocket before hitting Garrett Wilson in stride. His yards after the catch took them deep in the Dolphin territory, where the Jets continued moving the ball, capping the drive off with a 17-yard touchdown run by rookie running back Isaiah Davis. That touchdown with the extra point had the Jets up 10-9. The Dolphins, they answered by going on an impressive drive in the Jets' territory, picking up a fourth down conversion along the way. But the Jets' defense did not break. Another Jason Sanders field goal attempt. He hit the chip shot, and the Dolphins were back up 12-10. The Jets, they moved the ball effectively again. They were moving it. Rodgers found Devontae Adams get the ball down the field. Then on a big third down, Rodgers rolled out and looked for Isaiah Davis in the end zone. But Davis had been pushed out of bounds, and as he came back in, he was the first player to touch it. Illegal touching penalty resulting in a penalty forcing the Jets to try a field goal where Carlson hit a 30-yarder, and they took the lead back with just 49 seconds left in the half, which is just enough time for the Dolphins to pick up a few chunk plays, setting up a 57-yarder for Jason Sanders. I mean, he missed an extra point earlier, but he nailed this 57-yard field goal, and the Dolphins were up 15-13 going into the break. The fourth lead change of the second quarter. Just a back-and-forth game here. And to start the second half, Aaron Rodgers found Garrett Wilson on a 42-yard passing play to get down the field. And a few plays later, a play you've seen numerous times in Green Bay, Rodgers finding his old reliable Devontae Adams on a 3-yard touchdown pass. Jets leading 2015. Jets got the ball back and were moving down the field, getting in the Dolphins' territory, but settling for a field goal. Anders Carlson with a 40-yarder to increase the lead to 23-15. Dolphins had to wake up offensively, and they made some plays to get in the Jets' territory. And another defensive PI got him in the first and goal situation where they'd face another fourth and goal, but on fourth down, Tua Tagovailoa found Tyreek Hill for a 4-yard touchdown pass. They'd go for two. Tua found Jalen Waddle on almost the exact same route that Hill ran, and that tied the game up at 23 with just over 9 minutes to go in the fourth. The Jets, they've done most of the game, went on another impressive drive, killing time along the way. Aaron Rodgers eclipsed the 300-yard passing mark for the first time in 35 games. That's ridiculous. Didn't even seem real. I had to triple check that. Discount double check. Sorry. On a third down play, Rodgers would find Adams to pick up more yards for a little bit of a closer kick, but he stepped out of bounds on the reception, saving the Dolphins a lot of time there. Anders Carlson would step up and hit the 42-yard field goal to go up 26-23 with just under a minute to go. Dolphins got a nice kickoff return, which was a good start for them, getting the ball at the 46-yard line. They had no timeouts, though, and in a few plays, Miami was in field goal range, setting up a 52-yard field goal where Sanders nailed it. No problem. His 16th consecutive field goal make, tying the game at 26 with just 7 seconds left. Going into overtime, the Dolphins would win the coin toss, getting the ball first. Tua Tagovailoa looked for Jonnu Smith, who made his first catch of the game. It only took him till overtime, taking them in the Jets' territory. The Dolphins went back to the same play, going to Smith to get the ball inside the 40. The Dolphins were rolling, and Tua said, fuck, let's look for him again, finding Jonnu Smith for the third time in overtime, a 10-yard touchdown pass. That tough catch in the end zone secured the walk-off win, 32-26. Crazy Jonnu Smith, all three of his catches coming on that one drive in overtime. You know, better late than never. A wild comeback win for the Dolphins that, like I said, keep those slim playoff hopes alive. 7 lead changes in this game, and it took to overtime to get a winner, but gotta love the fight back of the Dolphins. Moving to 6-7, a loss would have basically killed off their playoff dreams. I mean, they're slim, but you're saying there's a chance. And for the Jets, like the Giants, just another tough loss in a tough season. The Jets dropped to 3-10. Nothing but heartbreak for the Jets. We know there will be significant changes from this roster to next and the coaching staff, but feeling the Jets' heartache right now. We'll stick with divisional bouts, go to AFC South, where there are two teams fighting it out to avoid dwelling in the division basement. You have the 2-10 Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Tennessee to take on the 3-9 Titans. Titans started this game with a decent drive, however, stalling in Jaguars territory. Nick Folk would come out, and the veteran kicker nailed a 46-yarder, give the Titans an early 3-0 lead. Jacksonville looked to answer, and Mac Jones still filling in for Trevor Lawrence, who is out for the year after taking that massive hit, which prompted a suspension on Al-Shaair. But Mac Jones didn't look too great to start, throwing it into a crowded area, getting intercepted by a Woozy. The Titans wouldn't do anything with that pick, though, just giving it back to the Jags. But then the Titans would have an impressive drive, getting deep in the Jaguars' territory. They'd go with a run play to Tony Pollard. Boom, touchdown. But offensive holding, taking it away and forcing the Titans back. The next play, Titans got a defensive PI. Boom, they're in first and goal. They're laughing. But the Jaguars, 3 consecutive consecutive stops. So instead of taking the field goals, Titans are like, we're barely winning. Let's go for it. Bringing in a big D-man, Jeffrey Simmons, to use him as a fullback. But he's more of a decoy. They didn't even use him. They'd throw it on the other side of the field, and the pass fell incomplete. A fantastic drive that ended in a turnover and downs rather than points, and Tennessee still only led 3-0. With 3-0, bringing the footy into here. With 1 second left in the half, the Titans lined up for a Hail Mary. Didn't go well. Will Levis just took a blind hit shot from Josh Hines Allen. Levis looked a little sore going the halftime, but he'd stay in the game. And to start the third quarter, the Titans they didn't do much. They punted to the Jaguars, but Mac Jones was struggling. They give it right back to Tennessee, where we'd finally see points again. Another Nick Folk field goal, 39 yards out, and Tennessee had the whopping 6-0 lead with under 5 minutes to go. Hopefully these tickets are only $1 to the game. Jacksonville finally got on the board. Rookie kicker Cam Little hit a 23-yard chip shot to cut the lead in half, 6-3 early in the fourth quarter. Then the Jags got the ball back, looking for more points, and Mac Jones had his best drive of the game, leading his team down the field, capping the drive off with an 8-yard Tank Bigsby run, giving the Jaguars their first lead of the game with just under 7 minutes to go in the fourth. They led 10-6. And in a game that lacked offense, Levis would find Calvin Ridley on a big play to get in the Jags' territory. Then on third down, Levis found the former Jag again, but instead of turning up field for the first down, his momentum took him out of bounds short of the first down. And with the Titans needing a touchdown, they'd have to go for it on fourth down, where Levis looked for Nick Westbrook-Akini in the end zone, where he's always making catches, but it was a little too high for him. He got a hand on it, but not enough to secure a catch. That was a turnover on downs, giving the Jaguars the ball back deep in their territory. But the Titans did have all 3 timeouts and forced a 3-and-out, giving Levis another chance to try and get the win. He'd fail to get his team into the end zone again, and the Jaguars would hold on for the 10-6 win. Only their third win of the season, ending a 5-game losing streak to go to 3-10, tying them with the now 3-10 Tennessee Titans. 2 franchises wishing for better days that just can't wait for this season to end. We'll see which of the 2 franchises solidify last place of the AFC South by season's end. Not a division battle, but an NFC bout with some familiarity between the 2 teams. A little bit of a homecoming for 6-6 Atlanta Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins after 6 seasons in Minnesota, including some successes, mostly stat-wise, but ending with a ruptured Achilles. Cousins left in free agency to join the Falcons, where he's been playing some of his worst ball hitting in the Minnesota, and things didn't help that his old club was sitting at 10-2. The Falcons, they were looking impressive on their opening drive, getting deep in the Vikings' territory. They'd face a fourth down and elect to go for it. Bijan Robinson picked up the first down. A few plays later, Tyler Algier ran it in from 6 yards out, scoring on the impressive touchdown to give the Falcons the early 7-0 lead on the road. Falcons would then force Minnesota to punt, and the offense went on another nice drive, but when faced with a 4th and 5, Falcons went for it again, this time failing to pick up the first down, turning the ball over on downs. The Vikings took advantage of that turnover, picking up first downs before Sam Darnold took a huge hit as he chucked it high and deep. Some confusion from the Falcons DBs as they lost the ball, leading to Jordan Addison coming back, securing the catch, and getting into the end zone. A big 49-yard touchdown pass timed the game up at 7 late in the first quarter. Falcons were looking to answer, but tell me if you've heard this recently. Kirk Cousins threw a bad interception, looking down the field where he was intercepted by Josh Metellus, giving the ball back to Minnesota. Sam Darnold would get the Vikings into the red zone. A big passing play to Justin Jefferson helped them get there, and a few plays later, Darnold getting nailed again as he threw the ball. The refs let the play go as a fumble, but a quick review saw it was an incomplete pass. So that was big. Rookie kicker Will Reichard, who returned to the lineup after being on IR, lined up the field goal and nailed it, but very late flag, defensive holding call on the field goal. So the Vikings said, you know what? We'll leave those 3 points. We're going to go for 7 and taking the penalty. And a few plays later, Sam Darnold found Justin Jefferson, a 12-yard touchdown pass. First touchdown catch in 2 months. And the Vikings turned that 3 points into 7, taking a 14-7 lead. I mean, it was a huge penalty call on the Falcons. I didn't really see it, but it was a call nonetheless. And the Falcons tried to get some late second quarter points. Cousins moving the ball in the Vikings' territory, getting to a first and goal situation while running the clock down. But the Falcons couldn't punch it in, settling for a Younghoe Koo chip shot, cutting the lead to 14-10 and going into halftime. Vikings started the second half with the ball and looked really good moving it down the field. Darnold took a few sacks, setting up a longer field goal, and Will Reichard came out to try the 47-yarder, but he doing it off the uprights, missing his first attempt since coming back. I mean, he hit that one earlier, but the penalty negated it, so it didn't really count. And that gave the Falcons pretty good field position, and they looked to take advantage of that missed field goal, marching down the field. And the Vikings kept the Vikings kept the Falcons out of the end zone, though, forcing a Young Wei Koo field goal where he hit a 29-yarder to cut the lead to 14-13. The Vikings were looking to answer again, and when facing a big third down, Sam Darnold bought some time scrambling around. He then had room to run, but instead aired it deep for Justin Jefferson. Terrible coverage in the secondary, and Jefferson was wide open. Darnold found Jefferson on the 52-yard touchdown pass, and the extra point put the Vikings up 21-13. Still a one-possession game. The Falcons were looking for an immediate response. They'd get some big plays to get down the field, and then when in Vikings territory, Bijan Robinson ran it in from 13 yards out. They'd go for two, where Robinson punched that in as well, tying the game at 21 with just under 40 to go in the third quarter. The Vikings get the ball back, looking to respond again. Darnold, he hit Jordan Addison again, a 42-yard passing play to get in the Falcons territory, where Darnold looked for Addison again, 11-yard touchdown pass, Vikings up 28-21. Darnold's fourth touchdown pass of the day, second to Addison. Jefferson already had two. That dynamic duo just tearing up the Falcons defense. After the score, the Falcons were looking for a big kickoff return, but did not get it. Instead, Ray McLeod got hit, and he fumbled, giving the Vikings fantastic field position where Sam Darnold would pick up touchdown number 5, looking for Jordan Addison again, who dove for pay dirt, the wide receiver's third touchdown catch of the day, put the Vikings up 35-21. Falcons were trying to force a way to get back into it, and Kirk Cousins' interceptions continued. He looked end zone, but got intercepted by Byron Murphy Jr., pulled off the amazing one-handed interception, ending the Falcons' drive with no points. The Vikings weren't done scoring yet, though. They got a very impressive drive down the field, capping it off with a 15-yard Aaron Jones touchdown run, and they were up 42-21, and that final touchdown was the icing on the beatdown cake served up by the Vikings. The win moving them to 11-2 as they stay just behind the Lions, but still ahead of the Packers in that crazy tough NFC North. Sam Darnold had a little dip of play leading into this one, so fans must have been thrilled to see, hey, Darnold tossed 5 touchdowns, no picks, only 6 incompletions on 28 throws. I mean, that's as good as a game you can have. And that wide receiver duo of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison reminded everyone that they could be, or they should be, one of the best receiving pairs in the NFL. The Falcons, they're free falling right now, and not an ideal situation for a high-flying bird of prey. Losers of 4 in a row, the now 6-7 Falcons are in jeopardy of missing out on that NFC South Division crown. Kirk Cousins, like I said earlier, is playing some of the worst football of his NFL career. Over his last 4 games, all Falcons losses, 0 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, becoming just the 6th quarterback in the last 20 years to go 4 straight games in a season with at least 1 interception and no touchdown passes. Joining the likes of Trace McSorley with Arizona in 2022, Curtis Painter with the Colts in 2011, current Cleveland Browns offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey back with the Browns in 2008, and 2 quarterbacks achieved the feat in 2005, Brett Favre with the Packers and Alex Smith with the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, not a bad group, but not a group you want to be really associated with in this situation. Regardless of those brutal Kirk Cousins numbers, it sounds like head coach Raheem Morris said the Falcons will stick with Kirk Cousins going forward, but we'll see if this free-falling Falcon can totally avoid crashing out by season's end. Sticking with NFC battles, we go to a game featuring 2 teams with much different win-loss records. You have the 3-9 Carolina Panthers, been playing much better football lately, and they went on the road to take on the NFC East leading 10-2 Philadelphia Eagles. No points until late in the first quarter in this one after both teams punting it away. Carolina would finally open the scoring with a 38-yard Eddie Pinheiro field goal, and the Panthers led early 3-0. The Eagles offense, they'd wake up, move the ball deep in the Panthers territory, but the Panthers defense was holding their own. Till the Eagles got to the 1-yard line on 3rd and goal, they did the classic tush push, brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it. It's a 1-yard touchdown run, and 13th rushing touchdown on the season for Jalen Hurts, which ties him with Derrick Henry from Baltimore. And just like that, Eagles led 7-3. Panthers look for a big response, and after getting a big play to get in the Philly territory, Panthers methodically moved closer to the end zone with Bryce Young finding tight end Tommy Tremble on a 3-yard touchdown pass, putting the Panthers back up 10-7. Panthers got the ball late in the half, and you'd see a bad throw by Bryce Young. His pass sailed on him, going into the arms of Philadelphia's C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That interception set up the Eagles with good position late in the second quarter. The Eagles took advantage of that turnover, moving the ball in the Panthers' territory. Running out of downs and time in the first half, Jalen Hurts would drop back looking for Devontae Smith, connecting on a 4-yard touchdown pass, his first touchdown catch in a month, giving the Eagles a 14-10 lead going into the break. Another hard lesson for Young. If you avoid throwing that interception late in the first half, you can probably go into the break with a lead. Instead, they trailed 14-10. Eagles started the second half with the ball, moving the ball effectively, settling for a long field goal. Jake Elliott lined up for the 52-yarder, but he'd miss it terribly. Elliott's 0-5 on field goals of 50 yards or longer this season. He was 7-8 on those last year. Huge drop-off for Elliott. We'll see what happens when the games get even more important down the stretch. Panthers look to take advantage of that missed field goal, marching right down the field. Bryce Young looking good, leading his team in the Eagles' territory. Then when faced with 4th and short, Young's pass over the middle was tipped at the line. But Adam Thielen, showing he doesn't skip out on tip drill, securing the catch for the 4th down pickup. A few plays later, Chuba Hubbard looked to score, but it was called short. Panthers challenged it, but the call stood. No matter, though, as Hubbard would punch it in on the next play. Also on that drive, Chuba Hubbard eclipsed the 1,000-yard rushing mark for the first time in his career. And some Canadian pride on that milestone. Hubbard became just the second Canadian to ever register a 1,000-yard rushing season in the NFL. Who's the only one before him? North Battleford, Saskatchewan's own Ruben Mays. He ran for 1,000 yards back in 1986 with the New Orleans Saints, his rookie season, where he also won NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Really cool Canadian NFL history right there, and Chuba Hubbard's part of it now. That touchdown put the Panthers back in front, but kicker Eddie Pinheiro missed the extra point. First missed extra point of the season, and the Panthers led 16-14. Eagles were looking to answer. Jalen Hurts showing he can scamper longer than a tush push, showing off the legs on a long run to get into the red zone. And a few plays later, he looked for backup tight end Grant Calcaterra on a 4-yard touchdown pass. Jake Elliott lined up that extra point and missed it, but Carolina jumped offside. So the Eagles said, you know what, let's just go for two, where Saquon punched it in, and Philadelphia led 22-16 early in the fourth. Eagles, they'd pin the Panthers deep, but following a nice special teams coverage play by the Eagles punt team. Then on third down, Bryce Young looked for rookie Xavier Leggett on a 31-yard passing play, avoiding a safety along the way, getting some of his shirt ripped a bit. Then later on the drive, the Panthers faced 4th and 7. Young hanging in the pocket before finding Adam Thielen, just clutch on 3rd and 4th down for the pickup. A few plays later, Young looked to find Leggett wide open for a touchdown. The replay showed the first-round selection had the ball bounce off the turf. That would have been the game, possibly. A massive play as the Panthers would have to go for it on 4th down, and Young rolled out trying to buy as much time as he could, but couldn't find his receiver. Another heroic display by Bryce Young that just comes up a little short, while the Eagles barely held on to their 9th straight victory, moving to 11-2 on the season, clinching a playoff berth in the process. They're also getting closer to sealing the NFC East. Plus, they're only one game behind the Detroit Lions, so they're still in the running for that number 1 seed in the NFC, which does give you a bye in the postseason. But talking with A.J. Brown after the game, you'd think the Eagles lost, saying the offense needs to work on their passing game. I mean, Jalen Hurts, 14 completions, 108 yards, and that touchdown to Smith, but the Eagles walked away with a win. A.J. Brown led the team with 4 catches and 43 yards, but I can understand the frustration. He wants to get more involved with his team, but the team's winning, so you probably shouldn't rock the boat too much, but we'll see what happens with that going forward. Could be some big issues behind the scenes, but for now, the 3-10 Carolina Panthers, they were in this game with a division leader that has Super Bowl hopes. So, I mean, that's pretty good for them. And if Leggett secures that deep ball, we may be talking about how the Panthers pulled this upset off. But what we see right now is the Panthers on a 3-game losing streak. But what we failed to see is how the Panthers have been in 5 straight one-possession games. And for a team that we saw earlier in the season, it's pretty good for them. Some fantastic viewing for Panthers fans and some optimism for a franchise that's kind of been lacking it lately. We go to an interconference matchup featuring mascots of pillaging. The 2-10 Las Vegas Raiders flew across the country to take on the 6-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Aiden O'Connell back in the starting quarterback position for the Raiders, coming back from a finger injury. Tampa Bay looked really good on their opening drive, facing a 4th and 1. Rachaad White picked it up. Then later on the drive, Baker Mayfield would find Jaden McMillan and wife on a 15-yard touchdown toss, opening the game up with a touchdown after almost a 7-minute drive to start the game. The Raiders' offense failed to do much, taking a big sack for punting it away. The Buccaneers' offense would just take off where they left off, going on a nice drive. Baker Mayfield wheeling and dealing, Rachaad White picking up yards. The two came together on a Mayfield pass, with Mayfield finding the running back out of the backfield where he'd punch it in on a 5-yard touchdown pass. Just like that, Tampa Bay was up 14-0 in the first quarter. The Bucs were looking for more points, but that Raiders defense made a big play. Tampa dialed up a perfect screen pass, but just as when Baker went to release it, and rusher Kayvon Chasen backed off his rush, making an athletic interception. A huge play to get the Raiders back in it. But to summarize the Raiders' season, Aiden Connell would fumble the very next snap, leading to a fumble recovery by the Bucs. They give it away, they take it back. But the game of keep away continued as Baker Mayfield would get hit and fumbled the ball, giving it back to the Raiders. 3 straight turnovers and 3 straight possessions. This time the Raiders took advantage of a turnover, getting deep in the Tampa territory on 3rd down. Aiden O'Connell had his foot stepped on just as he was backing up. It looked ridiculous. He was falling and he just chucked it. And it almost had a chance. If it wasn't for defensive pass interference on Jones, it could have been a touchdown. And the Raiders got it the one where O'Connell pulled off the quarterback sneak, cutting that lead to 14-7. And this Raiders defense was feeling it. They were roughing Baker Mayfield up. The Raiders would get a huge run out of Sincere McCormick to get in the Tampa territory, but settled for a Daniel Carlson field goal, trailing 14-10. Tampa was looking to add some points late in the first half. They were in field goal range, but Baker was looking for a wide receiver in the end zone, and as he went to release the pass, yet his own offensive lineman pushed right into his face, forcing a wobbling duck throw, which was intercepted by Jack Jones. Third turnover forced by the Raiders defense. They only had 5 coming in, so this is big for them, and they trailed 14-10 going into halftime. Excuse me, the Raiders were feeling confident to start the second half, picking up 4th down conversions on a very impressive drive. And after a clutch first down in the red zone, Aiden O'Connell dropped out back to pass, except his pass was intercepted, ending a drive that lasted over 10 minutes, no points, tough break for Vegas, who still trailed 14-10. The Raiders got the ball back. Their defense was doing great, and O'Connell backpedaled and lofted it over the head of his intended receiver, resulting in another interception. The play was reviewed, though, and the interception was overturned, so that helped Vegas. They'd keep the ball for one more play, but then 3rd down would come up short, and they'd have to punt. And on that, O'Connell took another huge shot that had him laying on the ground. Looking at the replay, Tampa Bay's Cansey, he hit O'Connell pretty late, and it didn't even prompt a flag. Very inconsistent refereeing here, but after that hit, you could see something wasn't right. He had to get an air cast on his leg before getting carted off. Raiders head coach Antonio Pierce said after the game, it doesn't look good, so kind of brutal for O'Connell. You know, he was getting the chance to get in there. He's dealt with injuries all season and just more injuries to that quarterback position the Raiders have dealt with all year. The Buccaneers offense, like I said, was struggling most of this game, but Mayfield would find Mike Evans on a 32-yard passing play. Then Sean Tucker got on a nice run to get inside the 5, where Rachaad White was the man, punching in a 3-yard touchdown run, his second touchdown of the game, put Tampa Bay up 21-10. The Raiders weren't giving up. Backup quarterback Desmond Ridder, he was in the game, finding Brock Bowers on a drive, and with that catch, he tied Detroit's Sam Laporta for the most receptions by a tight end in a season. And later on that drive, the Raiders picked up a big 4th down when Ridder found Jacoby Myers. Carlson hit a field goal to make it 21-13, and more importantly, a one-possession game. The Raiders needed a stop, but Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, they're rolling. Tampa looked to try a wide receiver screen. Perfect play call to a blitzing Raiders defense, and Mayfield found McMillan where he'd easily walk 29 yards into the end zone, high step in his way, putting Tampa up 28-13 with just under 2 to go. In garbage time, the Raiders were looking for points, and Ridder found Brock Bowers, who, with that catch, if you were listening earlier, would pass Laporta for the most rookie receptions from a tight end, 86. That record-breaking moment was the only high on a day for the Raiders. They ended up losing 28-13 to the Bucs, and with the win, Tampa Bay moves a game above 500 to 7-6. Combine that with another Atlanta Falcons loss. Boom, Buccaneers are the lone leaders of the NFC South. But if you remember from our other episodes, Atlanta does own the tiebreaker over the Buccaneers. So as long as Tampa sits ahead of the Falcons, they win the division. For the losing Raiders, the losing streak's now at a league high 9 games, current league high. Gardner Minshew, we know he's done for the season with that broken collarbone. It looks like Aiden O'Connell's probably going to miss the rest of the season with his knee injury. So it looks like Atlanta Falcons third round pick Desmond Ridder is getting another chance to run a team here, unless God forbid he gets an injury. I don't know. It's just been a tough go for the Raiders this year. We'll go to a big time NFC West battle here, division bout here between the 6-6 Arizona Cardinals hosting the division leading 7-5 Seattle Seahawks. And, this is the second time they're meeting up. The Seahawks beat the Cardinals back in Seattle in Week 12, and this game was huge. If Seattle wins, they distance themselves from the Cardinals, or the Cardinals win, they try to even things up with the Seahawks. The Cardinals got off to a perfect start. Kyler Murray looking deep, finding wide receiver Michael Wilson, scoring on a 41-yard touchdown toss. Cardinals leading early 7-0. Seattle went on a nice drive, but couldn't quite punch it in, settling for a Jason Myers field goal chip shot, cutting that lead to 7-3. Murray was looking to answer that score, but his pass was intercepted by Ernest Jones IV, giving the Seahawks a red zone possession. Very next play, Geno Smith threw a perfect ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba, securing the 19-yard touchdown catch. And just like that, Seattle was up 10-7 with 10 quick unanswered points. Next Cardinals drive, there was some cute confusion between the quarterback, Kyler Murray, and his receiver, and Murray threw his second interception of the game. This time, Kobe Bryant got the pick, setting Seattle up with good field position again. And again, they'd capitalize off that interception. Getting deep into the red zone, Zach Charbonnet would get a 1-yard touchdown run, taking it and going offside to find pay dirt. And after that quick, amazing start for Arizona, they found themselves trailing 17-7. Arizona looked to respond again, and this time Murray didn't throw it to the other team, but they'd have to settle for a Chad Ryland field goal, a 28-yarder, cut the lead to 17-10. As the second half was running down, it looked like the Seahawks were hungry for points, and they'd get a touchdown in a big way. Zach Charbonnet would take the handoff and bust a 51-yard touchdown run, evading defenders on the way to pay dirt. Seattle had a 24-10 lead going into the break. As the third quarter would go on, Seattle added more points. Jason Myers hitting a 36-yard field goal increased that lead to 27-10. The Cardinals needed to respond, and they'd get a nice drive moving down the field, capping it off with Kyler Murray finding James Conner out of the backfield. Wide receiver secured a 2-yard touchdown pass. They'd go for two, and Murray scampered outside to get in. The Cardinals trailed by 9, 27-18, so it was still a two-possession game. In the fourth quarter, the Cardinals got the ball back, knowing they'd need at least 2 scores. Getting the field goal range, they'd line up a 40-yard field goal, but Chad Ryland missed the kick. One he usually makes, but missing it at this point was huge because it stayed a two-possession game. Seattle would take advantage of that missed kick, running down the field, killing clock along the way. And just after the 2-minute warning, Jason Myers would hit his third field goal of the game, a 35-yarder to put the Seahawks up 30-18, keeping it a two-possession game, but now requiring 2 touchdowns with under 2 minutes to go. Cardinals wouldn't come close to pulling that feat off, losing at home 30-18 to the Seahawks. And the Seahawks, they're cooking right now. That winning streak moves to 4 games as they improve to 8-5, sitting alone atop the NFC West. And when they play as well as they did against the Cardinals, this team looks like they can be a threat in the playoffs. It's consistency. It's the problem for the Seahawks. They were missing Kenneth Walker. They had beat up running backs, and it did not seem to bother them one bit. You can see a little bit of that Baltimore swag in how this team plays, taking on the personality of new head coach Mike McDonald. He was a great DC at Baltimore, and he seemed to have brought that mentality to the Seahawks there. For the 6-7 Cardinals, they're in trouble. They're now 2 games behind division-leading Seattle. Plus, with that second loss in the season to Seattle, the Seahawks now own the tiebreaker over Arizona. So it's like the Cardinals are an extra game back. They've been in these games, but Kyler Murray's early interceptions really swung the game. This team has pieces. It's getting them all to show up the same time in the same game. You can tell rookie wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a good receiver in this league, but he's made some mistakes out there, and in some physical play, he's not winning those battles. He might have to bulk up this offseason to compete with some of these DBs in the NFL. I hope this team stays patient with head coach Jonathan Gannon, and I do feel he's the right guy for the job, although this recent losing streak may have cost them making the playoffs, but we'll see what they can do with the last 4 games to try and make things interesting. That division's wild, that NFC West, but we're going to stay in the NFC, another NFC matchup featuring 2 teams hungry for a win. The 4-8 Chicago Bears coming in losers of 6 in a row, visiting the 6-6 San Francisco 49ers, who are riding a 3-game losing streak on their own. 49ers started the game off, and Brock Purdy looked pretty good back in the lineup, going 4 for 4, 70 yards, and a 7-yard touchdown pass to Juwan Jennings. They took the 7-0 lead. He hit George Kittle on a 33-yard catch to really get the ball down the field. The Bears, they were really struggling offensively, kicking it back to the 49ers and go on another impressive drive. This time, Isaac Guerrero, the rookie running back, would punch it in. They'd lead 14-0. As mentioned, the Bears' offense struggled. San Francisco just pulled their best Fred Durst and kept on rolling, baby. Brock Purdy, he continued to cook, finishing the drive off with a 16-yard touchdown pass to Jennings. Hit their second touchdown connection of the game, and the 49ers were up 21-0. Throwing a Jake Moody field goal before the end of halftime, it was 24-0, a score that could have been worse. The Bears put up a paltry 4 yards in the half, the Bears' smallest first half output since 1991, and their yards disparity between them and the 49ers is the largest we've seen in one half this season. San Francisco putting up 319 yards in the first half was a difference of 315 to the Bears' 4. Not the output you were hoping for if you were a Bears fan after the firing of Matt Eberflus. The offense seemed to regress, and the defense looked lost on more than one occasion. But start the third quarter, the Bears looked like a completely different team. They played as almost they were threatened that they'd rehire Matt Eberflus. Caleb Williams, he led the Bears offense on an impressive drive, capping the lengthy 9-minute drive off with a 4-yard touchdown pass to fellow rookie Roma Dunze. They'd go for 2, fail to convert, still trailing 24-6. Defense, they got the ball right back to them, getting Caleb Williams the ball again. But when Caleb Williams was moving, he looked to kind of bring the ball back, and it slipped out of his hands, kind of a tuck rule situation. It was called the fumble, where the 49ers responded, and they'd move down the field, getting in the Bears' territory, where Isaac Guerrero punched in a 4-yard touchdown, his second rushing touchdown of the game, and the Niners led 31-6. And the Bears got the ball back, and like I said, there's a tale of two halves. They were looking great. Williams led his team down the field in no time, looking for a Dunze in the end zone again, a tough 14-yard touchdown catch, his second of the game. He was coming into the season with only one on the season, so pretty good for him in this game. And as the game went on, we'd see more injuries to that running back position for San Francisco. Doesn't even seem real anymore. 4th-round pick out of Louisville via Wisconsin, Isaac Guerrero, he was having a good game. You've heard me mention his name a few times. 15 carries, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he'd leave the game with a foot injury. They're hoping it's a sprained foot, a minor one, but MRI will figure that out. It's just hard to fathom. The 49ers, look at their running backs. Christian McCaffrey, IR. Elijah Mitchell, IR. Jordan Mason, IR. They were on their 4th running back. And now who knows what's up with Guerrero. Hopefully nothing serious. But like those Energizer battery commercials in the 80s, 90s, the 49ers running game just kept going. Patrick Taylor Jr. came in, and he'd score on a 3-yard touchdown run. 49ers led 38-13. After that score, the 49ers unloaded the backups in the game, where we'd see Chicago get a high note when Jonathan Owens, Simone Biles' husband, intercepted backup Brandon Allen. One of the few highlights in a game that didn't have many for the Bears. 49ers cruised to a 38-13 win, but potentially losing another running back in the process. We'll have to see how Isaac Guerrero's MRI goes, but that was a must-win game for the 49ers. I feel if they lost that, they'd be too far gone. But now it's 6-7, tied with the Cardinals. They're a few games behind the NFC West leading Seattle Seahawks, who they will be playing soon. And the injuries are still very much prevalent on the San Francisco roster. But winning this game at home against the Bears has them at least moving in the right direction. In the other direction, we have the 4-9 Chicago Bears, losers of 7 in a row. The head coaching change didn't immediately fix things, but I mean, it rarely does in an instant. This team just needs to try and get some continuity to finish the season off. We know the season's lost, but over the last stretch of games to finish the seasons, the Bears will get a good chance to see their new pieces under new leadership. Things may get harder before they get easier, but that's sometimes the life after drafting number 1 overall pick in the draft. Usually when you have that pick, you're not a playoff team. So disappointment is real, but a lot of good positives for the Bears fans going forward. We had another interconference matchup in the week featuring the 10-2 Buffalo Bills crossing the United States to take on the 6-6 Los Angeles Rams. It's a pretty interesting matchup. Little did we know what we were about to witness. And in this game, the Bills looked like heavy favorites, but they found themselves in an early deficit. Rams started with the ball, going on a nice drive to open the game with Kieran Williams running it into the end zone. 3-yard touchdown run had the Rams leading 7-0 early. The Bills were faced with a 3rd and long, Josh Allen buying time, and just as he was near the sidelines, as he's done so many times, he got hit, though. So it was an incomplete pass, but he got hit, 15-yard personal foul, Bills first down, huge penalty, because the Bills would march down the field with Josh Allen ending the drive with a quarterback sneak. Things tied up at 7. Rams went on another impressive drive, although this time they wouldn't get the end zone, settling for a Joshua Carty chip shot. The rookie out of Stanford hit the 22-yard field goal to give the Rams a 10-7 lead. The Rams would then force the Bills to punt, but there was a mix-up blocking, and that punt was blocked, with the Rams' Hunter Long scooping it up, scampering 22 yards for the touchdown, and the Rams were up 17-7, a huge play. The Bills got the ball back, and they'd look to answer quickly, and that's just what they did. Josh Allen found Ty Johnson out of the backfield, and the running back took it 41 yards to pay dirt, cutting that lead to 17-14. But this Rams offense, they were feeling it. They'd go on a long drive, picking up clutch third down conversions along the way, and one of the most outrageous sideline toe-tapping catches you'll see, Puka Nacua securing the catch. Look, his toes look like Michael Jackson, the Smooth Criminal music video. Matthew Stafford, he'd then hand the ball off to Nacua later on the drive, and he'd scamper 4 yards into the end zone, putting the Rams back up 10 going into the break, 24-14. The third quarter, the Rams kept doing their thing, marching down the field in the Bills' territory, capping a long drive off with another Kieran Williams touchdown run. This one from 7 yards out, and the Rams were up 31-14 with just under 8 to go in the third. Bills needed a quick response, and they'd get it. Josh Allen finding Khalil Shakir over the middle of the field, where he showed off the lightning speed, sprinting past defenders on a 51-yard touchdown play, cutting the lead to 31-21. The Bills needed a stop, but they just could not get it. The Rams marched down on the Bills again. Stafford throwing a ridiculously nice throw between two defenders, the Cooper Kupp, as the defenders collided with each other, finding the star receiver on a 17-yard touchdown toss, and just like that, the Rams were back up 38-21 with seconds to go in the third. But in just a few plays, the Bills were back in the red zone. To start the fourth quarter, Josh Allen found Shakir on a 34-yard play to get down to the one, where Josh Allen would punch in his second rushing touchdown of the game, and it was 38-28. I wouldn't believe it, but the Bills defense got a stop and got the ball back to Josh Allen, where he'd go on a ridiculous 30-yard run to move the ball in the Rams' territory. Then he'd follow that up by throwing an absolute dart to Mac Hollins, a 21-yard touchdown pass. Ridiculous. Sometimes you have really good coverage, but sometimes a better throw beats said coverage, and that's what happened there. That nice touchdown cut that Rams lead to 38-34 with just under 9 minutes to go in the fourth. Here we go. The Bills needed another stop, but Matthew Stafford on third down, absolutely ridiculous. He was so effective. Anytime the Bills looked close to getting a stop, boom, Rams first down. They'd face a 4th and 5, and you had a big decision because field goal put the Rams up 6, but there's so much time left, so Sean McVay said, let's go for it. Stafford found Tutu Atwell on the play. Huge first down to keep those chains moving. And Tom Brady, though, he's sharp. He pointed out the Rams jumped offside, or a false start on the play, but it wasn't called. That would have changed McVay's decision possibly. Another missed call on the list of many this season. But the game continued, clock running down. The Bills not wanting to use a timeout, but the Rams were so effective, and just after the 2-minute warning, Matthew Stafford found Puka Nacua, battling injuries all game, but he got away from the defender, finding his way to the end zone again, a huge 19-yard touchdown play, making it a 2-possession game, but Joshua Carty missed the extra point, keeping things interesting at 44-35 with 1:54 left in the game. Bills needed 2 scores, and they needed them quickly, and they did all have 3 timeouts, but they didn't want to use them unless they had to. The Bills faced an early 4th and 15. Allen looking down the field for Shakur. He was hit, and the ball fell incomplete, but defensive pass interference. Huge penalty. The Bills looked end zone. Another defensive pass interference, getting it at the 1. They had just over a minute left, and they didn't want to burn any timeouts, but they tried the gutsy call, trying the quarterback sneak with Josh Allen. It came up short, though. Huge defensive play because of how long it takes to get the bodies cleared to snap again. The Bills were forced to take a timeout, changing the strategy entirely. Tom Brady was hating the play call. He's like, why don't you throw it 3 times and, burn any timeouts? I love the passion he has in the booth there. But after that timeout, the Bills did the sneak again, and this time Allen scored. 3rd rushing touchdown of the game, which put him in some history. With that score, Josh Allen became the first NFL player to throw for 3 touchdowns and run for 3 touchdowns in the same game. Extra point made it a ridiculous 44-42 game. But because the Bills used one of their timeouts, they couldn't just kick it away and hope for a 3 and out. They had to try the onside kick, where only 3 had been successful all year with this new kickoff format. Bills tried, didn't come close. Rams recovered, putting the record for onside kicks at 3-40 for the season. The Rams ran 3 plays, killing the Bills' timeouts and running the clock down to 7 seconds, where they'd sky a punt, and that's how the game ended. A very anticlimactic ending to one of the best games of the season, but wow. What a game. The Rams holding on to win 44-42, the highest combined scoring game in the NFL this season. Matthew Stafford, amazing. Kieran Williams he was solid in the running game. He's got such a knack for finding the end zone, and that win put the Rams at 7-6 this season, keeping pace with the division-leading Seattle Seahawks, who the Rams trail by 1 game in the West. This team just finds ways to win, and I know the record doesn't scream it, but I think Sean McVay's got to get some mentions for Coach of the Year award. Like, you look at how young this defense is, the injuries they've dealt with. I don't think he's going to win the award, but I mean, he's got to get some credit for the job he's done this season. That NFC West still wide open. I can't wait to see who wins that division. With this big win, the Rams are right in the mix, and they don't get a long rest, taking on an NFC West rival in just a few days on Thursday Night Football. We'll get more to that on our predictions episode. And for the Bills, got to feel a little bummed out about this one. You can't blame Josh Allen, really. The guy scored 6 touchdowns in a way that no one has ever done in NFL history. That block punt early in the game and that timeout the Bills had on that quarterback sneak, that's it. That's how the Rams really pulled this off. I mean, they played damn near perfect football, and the Bills still almost won. So that shows the Bills, A, can be beaten, but it shows it's, B, fucking really hard to do. So I'm excited about both of these teams coming out of this one. The Bills, they dropped to 10-3, and they're further away from catching the AFC's number 1 seeded Kansas City Chiefs, and it's also opened the door for Pittsburgh, who's at 10-3, to potentially catch them for that 2nd seed in the AFC. But the Bills' next game against Detroit in Detroit could be another game of the year. Not to overhype it or anything after this just game, but we'll get more to that on our prediction episode as well. All those games led us to Sunday night, where we had another division rivalry here, an AFC West showdown with the 8-4 Los Angeles Chargers going into Arrowhead to take on the rivaled 11-1 Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs were trying to clinch their 9th straight AFC West title, while the Chargers were looking to show the defending champs a thing or two. The home team Chiefs started the game with a good drive, but settled for a 47-yard Matthew Wright field goal. He's the 3rd different kicker the Chiefs have gone to this season, with Harrison Butker still on the IR following that meniscus procedure, but he nailed it. Chiefs led 3-0. Defenses were playing great. We'd see no points the rest of the 4th quarter, not seeing them through halfway into the 2nd. Matthew Wright hit his 2nd field goal of the game, this one 33 yards out, and the Chiefs led 6-0. Chargers offense still failed to produce, giving the Chiefs some time to finish the half with points, and Kansas City marched down the field quickly. Patrick Mahomes finding DeAndre Hopkins, who got into the end zone, a 9-yard touchdown toss, put the Chiefs up 13-0 going into the break. To start the second half, the Chargers looked like a whole different team. They must have had the same serum the Bears had earlier. They were beating up on the Chiefs on the line of scrimmage as they moved the ball in the Kansas City territory. They then capped the physical drive off with a physical 3-yard touchdown run by Gus Edwards, cutting that Chiefs lead to 13-7. Chargers defense forced a quick punt out of the Chiefs, and right away Herbert looked downfield for Quentin Johnson. Double coverage, but a flag for defensive PI. Huge play to get the Chargers down the field, and a few plays later, Herbert looked for Johnson again, this time a 4-yard touchdown pass, and with that extra point, Chargers led 14-13 with 3.5 to go in the 3rd. Chiefs needed response, and they get the ball in the Chargers territory, hitting a 50-yard field goal, right, hitting another one. His 3rd made field goal of the game put the Chiefs up 16-14 early in the 4th. Chargers had chances to respond. They moved the ball on the field effectively, lots of Gus Edwards on the drive. Chargers are looking to pick up a first down, get closer to the end zone, but Kansas City, Tershawn Wharton, big sack on Herbert, forcing a field goal try. Cameron Dicker, the kicker, hit a 37-yarder to put the Chargers back up to 7-16. Another lead change in the 4th with 4.5 to go. Lots of times for a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, and just like we've seen numerous times before, Mahomes led the Chiefs down the field, eating up the clock, scrambling for a first down. You then hand off to a physical Isaiah Pacheco, who thrives in late-game rushing situations, especially when that defense is a little tired. And just as I called earlier on my prediction episode, big 3rd down late in the game with a game on the line, Patrick Mahomes scrambles before a little dink pass to Travis Kelce. First down as they ran the clock down, setting up potential game-winning field goal. Matthew Wright stepping up to try the 31-yarder, and he'd bank it in off the uprights as close as you can get. And a great call by Mike Tirico on the play. The doink for the division. That's why he's one of the best, but just an unreal play, an emotional roller coaster. Kansas City Chiefs viewership this season. It's crazy, but at the end of the game, they usually win. They're always winning. It's ridiculous. Chargers played great, but they couldn't stop the doink for the win. And you got to shout out Matthew Wright, 4 for 4, game winner, even if it was a doink. Not bad for the journeyman kicker. That win put the Chiefs at 12-1 on the season, one of the more unlikely 12-1 teams in NFL history when you look at the numbers. But Mahomes doesn't care about your stinking numbers. He's looking for his 3rd straight Super Bowl win here. The offensive numbers of the Chiefs, they won't won't blow you away. Mahomes 24 for 37, 210 yards and that one touchdown. The running game only put up 96 yards, but none of those stats include winning plays, and that's what the Chiefs did. That's the difference between them and the rest of the NFL. Granted, some of them have been a little fluky. You have the Ravens toe, you have the walk-off field goal against the Broncos, and now the doink for the division. So they're picking these up along the way, but that's winning teams do. And as I was mentioning earlier, this win clinched the AFC West division. They're 9th in a row, chasing history as they're just behind the New England Patriots, who had won 11 consecutive AFC East divisions. So you got a feel for the now 8-5 Chargers. They played great. That defense, it's something else, but offensively, you can't have a first half like you did there. They look good in the third quarter, but didn't do enough of those winning plays I mentioned the Chiefs do to secure the win. Herbert was getting beat up again. And despite this great season the Chargers are having, if they can get back in the playoffs, if Herbert's not available, it'll be all for loss. They got to keep him healthy. And some other positives, you had to love the hard running of Gus Edwards and Kamani Vidal for the Chargers. Not tons of yards, but enough to keep the defense honest, especially in the second half. And the Chargers have to be happy about the emergence of tight end Stone Smart, making 3 big catches for 54 yards in this one. We'll see how much more he gets involved in this offense wrapping up the year. And wrapping up their Week 14 recap, we go to a Monday Night Football game, another interconference matchup. 4-8 Cincinnati Bengals visiting Texas to take on the 5-7 Dallas Cowboys. Two teams we were probably expecting to have better records at this point in the season. And if you didn't think this matchup was going to live up to its hype, you could at least tune into the version of the game being broadcast Simpson style. Very unique broadcasting experience. That was something to look into. I like the idea of it. The jokes were funny, but I mean, it wasn't ideal football watching, which I was kind of hoping for, but really cool to watch the highlights after, and super jealous of Mina Kimes living out every Simpsons fan dream. But this game, despite the records, had some excitement to it. The Cowboys went on a nice drive on their first offensive possession, getting down the field, and Cooper Rush would find CeeDee Lamb an 11-yard touchdown pass, giving the Cowboys early 7-0 lead. Bengals responded quickly, though, marching down the field where Joe Burrow found Jamar Chase in the end zone on a 5-yard touchdown toss. Troy Aikman pointed out in the replay how Burrow made that throw before Chase was even out of his route, showing the chemistry between those two. Cowboys were moving the ball down the field again, and when they were in the red zone, Cooper Rush's pass went right to Cam Taylor-Britt after CeeDee Lamb fell, but it hit the DB's chest. Luckily, it bounced to his teammate Geno Stone, who secured the interception. Big pick for them. The Bengals would try to take advantage of that by moving down the field where they'd face a 4th down near midfield. They'd go for it, failing to pick it up, giving the ball back to Dallas. And from that turnover, the Cowboys had got in the Bengal territory, hitting a Brandon Aubrey field goal, and they led 10-7. Bengals were looking to answer, and they would in a big way. After moving down the field, Joe Burrow found London, Ontario native Chase Brown out of the backfield. 19-yard touchdown pass, giving Cincinnati their first lead of the game, 14-10. Bengals got it back for the end of the first half, and recently signed kicker Cade York hit a 37-yarder to give the Bengals a 17-10 lead. And no pressure for York, kicking it in front of his Dallas Cowboys cheerleader girlfriend. But he hit it, and the kick I'm talking about. But in the second half, the Cowboys would have another nice drive. This time, Cooper Rush would find Brandon Cooks in the end zone, scoring on a 3-yard touchdown toss, tying this game up at 17. Bengals looked to answer with a nice drive, moving the Cowboys' territory, but Joe Burrow was looking for his receiver, and it went high, where he was picked off by Malik Hooker. The Cowboys used that interception to go down the field, setting up another Brandon Aubrey field goal, 47-yarder, put the Cowboys up 20-17 to start the fourth. And the Bengals would answer by moving down the field, and Cade York hit another field goal, this one 29 yards out, tying the game at 20 with just under 10 to go. The defenses were making big stops and forcing punts over the fourth quarter, having the teams exchanging the ball. The Bengals looked kind of effective moving it down the field, but back-to-back holding penalties really pushed them back. And on 3rd and 20, Burrow took a sack, forcing the Bengals to punt it away with 2 minutes left. The punt was blocked, though, by Cowboys' Nick Vigil, making an awesome play on the ball, but then the Cowboys made a catastrophic error. Amani Oruwari, for some reason, tried to scoop up the ball as after it was blocked. All they had to do was leave it. They just had to leave it, but he went for the scoop, whiffed on said scoop, ball bounced off him, Cincinnati recovered. So they kept the ball after the block kick. Absolutely ridiculous. He just had to not touch it, and they would have had the ball with great field position. Instead, Cincinnati got the ball back, fresh pair of downs on their own 46. You could see the frustration on the Dallas team, especially the special teams. The Bengals, they looked inspired inspired getting the ball back there as they were trying to get deeper in the field goal range. Joe Burrow found Jamar Chase. He spun away from Deron Bland, taking it 40 yards to pay dirt, putting the Bengals up 27-20 with just over a minute in the game. Cowboys fans look stunned. Dallas star end rusher Micah Parsons, he looked stunned. He was vibrating on the bench. He went to the locker room before this game even ended. Cooper Rush and the Cowboys had to get a touchdown to keep this game alive, moving around midfield. Faced with fourth down, Rush's pass to Ferguson went high, fell incomplete. Huge Bengals win. Football, it's crazy. The Cowboys, they were in the driver's seat after that block punt. But one blunder really killed off any hopes of the Cowboys making the playoffs now. They had it. And I'm pretty sure the playoff ship has now sailed for them, dropping to 5-8. They're still alive, but I don't see it. Things look to be getting for Cowboys fans after that winning streak, but pow, right in the kisser. Tough for them. On the contrast, big win for Cincinnati. They moved to 5-8 on the season, and I feel the Bengals, they played better in some of those losses than they did in this win, but you take the wins when you can. And the Bengals, unlike the Cowboys, they're still technically alive in the playoff picture, but I think it's super unlikely they sneak in at this point. The odds of these teams missing out of the playoffs are pretty high, but that's football. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the year? No Bengals, no Cowboys. Wow. So that's week 14 in the NFL. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty fucking crazy. My Sunday, Monday picks, I did okay. Could have done better. Going 8-4. Like I said, could have done better. The 4 teams that let me down, well, I thought the Giants would pull off a victory, and they had the chance to tie it late, but that field goal block messed them up. Thought Kirk Cousins would bounce out of his slump, not fall deeper into it, and that one cost me with the Falcons. And I also went all in on the Cardinals, but they got pecked down by the Seahawks. And like many, I imagined the Bills would win in LA, but hey, those Rams, they rammed out, and that's week 14 for you. Get ready for week 15 prediction episode. No more buys left. Bye as we enter the final stretch. And it's playoff time for you fantasy owners. I'll be watching from the outside looking in. Rough go for Ren City in fantasy football this year. 2 teams, no playoff berths. Yikes. At least I got this, though. Good times. Well, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the games, and Ren City out.